Have you ever paused just for a second because something felt too perfect, too aligned, too strange to be random? A number repeating over and over. A song that plays just as you think of someone you haven't spoken to in years. A series of events that unfold with eerie precision as if reality itself was trying to tell you something. What if I told you you've been told your whole life that these moments, these coincidences, mean nothing? Just accidents, brain glitches, meaningless noise in a chaotic universe. But what if the opposite was true? What if everything you've been trained to dismiss was actually the most important message you'll ever hear? Let's break the illusion. From the moment your consciousness began to form, they started feeding you lies. Not out of cruelty, but control. You were told life is mechanical, that the universe is cold and different and fundamentally random, that any alignment of events, no matter how precise, no matter how stirring, was just chance, a fluke, your imagination running wild. They told you the patterns you saw were tricks, brain errors, misfirings of a mind desperate to make sense of chaos. But what if those patterns weren't tricks at all? What if they were messages, intentional signals, a cosmic language designed to awaken something ancient within you? You've seen the signs. 1111 on the clock again and again. The same number chasing you on receipts, on license plates, on hotel room doors. A gut feeling before something unexpected happens. A song that plays when you're thinking of someone who's been gone for years. A book that falls at your feet, opening to the exact page that answers a question you hadn't dared speak aloud. And yet, every time you told yourself it's just a coincidence. Why? Because that's how you were trained. As a child, you noticed things. You felt things. The world pulsed with mystery. You saw beauty and timing order in chaos. You felt connected to something bigger, something you couldn't name. But slowly that sense of wonder was stripped away. The moment you asked your first big question, they gave you an answer, prepackaged, sterilized, and scripted. Answers designed not to illuminate truth, but to reinforce belief. Belief in a world that doesn't care. A world that is dead cold and ultimately meaningless unless someone in a lab coat or a pulpit tells you otherwise. You were told that's just your imagination. You're reading too much into it. You're overthinking, and eventually you believe them. The education system stepped in early. It built you a box and trained you to live inside it. You were handed rulers, calculators, and charts not to explore the universe, but to confine it. Logic was God. Measurement was truth. Anything that couldn't be dissected, tested, or quantified was labeled unworthy of attention. Imagination was allowed only during recess. Wonder was reserved for fairy tales. Everything else, it belonged to science, to facts, to data. If you couldn't touch it, it didn't matter. You weren't taught to think freely. You were taught to obey the framework. And your teachers, they weren't villains. They were victims, too, passing down the same programming they'd received. And so piece by piece, the soft voice inside you, the one that once noticed the whispering of the universe, was silenced. Religion stepped in next. For many, it offered meaning, but it also came with boundaries. You were told that divine communication was limited to sacred texts, ancient prophets, or sanctioned rituals. If something miraculous happened outside those contexts, if you sensed meaning in your own life, it was either brushed off as God's mysterious plan or dismissed as dangerous superstition. The idea that the universe itself might be alive and intelligent, interacting with you directly, intimately, moment by moment, was too wild, too threatening. So it was buried. There was no room for the middle ground. You were forced to choose, either believe in institutional religion or believe in nothing at all. Then came the media. Films, television, and pop culture painted a clear picture. Those who saw meaning and patterns were lunatics, conspiracy theorists, the paranoid, the unstable, the ones who wore tinfoil hats and couldn't accept the randomness of life. You learned that expressing your inner truth, your suspicion that something more was going on, would make you an outsider. So you stayed quiet. You internalized the shame. You trained yourself to ignore what you once felt so deeply, and over time you stopped seeing it altogether. But the universe didn't stop speaking. It kept whispering. Even as the noise of modern life grew louder, notifications, social media, endless, scrolling designed to fragment your attention, the soft signals continued. They were buried but not gone. The more distracted you became, the harder they were to perceive, but they were still there, waiting. Some of those signals go deeper than I can share here. In our private Insights Academy newsletter, I reveal the things YouTube won't allow. The link is below. For now, if you join, you'll also receive a free copy of the Kybalion, a foundational text for those beginning to see through the veil. By the time you reached adulthood, your worldview was fixed. Reality had been filtered for you. Coincidence ruled everything. Meaning didn't exist unless someone with a badge or a collar said it did. The spiritual was fantasy, intuition was dangerous, mystery was nonsense, and yet something in you resisted. Quietly, you still felt the patterns, the timing, the alignment, the sense that something was trying to get your attention. And that suspicion never fully left you. Why? Because deep down you knew. Your intuition is not faulty. It's not broken. It's not childish. It's powerful. That's why they taught you to ignore it. Because intuition is dangerous. It's the key. It's the thread that unravels the entire web of lies. Once you begin to trust it, once you allow yourself to consider that maybe synchronicity is real, you begin to wake up. You stop sleepwalking through life. You begin to engage, to question, to see, and the system doesn't want that. You'll begin to see the cracks. The things that once felt like just coincidences start piling up. You notice the same symbols appearing everywhere on billboards, in dreams, and random conversations. You realize that the world is mirroring you back to yourself, not because reality changed, because you finally opened your eyes. The universe doesn't shout, it whispers. In all your life, you were trained not to hear it. But now you're listening. Synchronicity isn't random. It's deliberate. It's a kind of communication. A deeply intelligent language that bypasses logic and speaks directly to your subconscious. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, called it meaningful coincidence events that appear causally unrelated but feel undeniably connected. Think about it. That moment you're thinking of someone and they call you. Seeing the same number everywhere, 11, 11, 22, 3T3. A book falling off the shelf the moment you're grappling with a question and it holds the answer. That's not chaos. That's not chance. That's a pattern. That's the universe responding to your frequency. We've spent centuries building a model of the world where consciousness is an accident and everything meaningful is just imagination. But that model is collapsing. People are waking up, not to conspiracy, but to connection. We are realizing that the material world is only half the story. The other half, it's symbolic, subtle, reflective, participatory. When you notice a synchronicity, you're not just observing the world. You're shaping it. You are in conversation with something vast, something ancient, something alive. And the moment you choose to believe that is the moment everything changes. There's a part of you, a part that they've worked tirelessly to silence, that already understands this language. You've seen it, felt it, especially when the same numbers start appearing again and again. 11, 11, 22, 34, 4. These aren't random figures dancing across your screen or street signs. They're not just tricks of the mind or quirks of pattern recognition. They are part of a symbolic language that transcends words. And once you start noticing them, they don't just show up. Occasionally, they begin to flood your reality as if something far greater is trying to get your attention. You might wonder, is it all in my head? Is my brain simply wired to look for patterns? But no, this is not about mental noise. This is a signal, something real, something intelligent, a quiet tapping on the window of your awareness. Mystics and seekers throughout history knew this. The ancient numerologists believed that numbers carry energy vibrations that shape the structure of reality. Pythagoras, the famed mathematician, wasn't just crunching formulas. He believed numbers were divine archetypes, living blueprints of cosmic order. Numbers to him weren't quantities. They were qualities, intelligent symbols woven into the very design of existence. But this way of seeing numbers and carriers of deeper meaning has been scrubbed from the curriculum, intentionally. Because the moment you start believing that numbers hold messages, you begin asking dangerous questions. Questions like, who or what is sending them? What is the architecture of this reality? Is it truly as cold and indifferent as I've been told? Or is there something conscious operating behind the scenes? If you entertain that possibility even for a moment, the illusion of randomness begins to dissolve. And in its place, something extraordinary emerges, the idea that a vast intelligence not bound by time or institutions may be guiding you. Those repeating numbers, they're not there to amuse you. They're not spiritual fireworks for your ego. They're guides, beacons, wake-up calls, reminders that you are not alone, that your journey has meaning, that your decisions are not being made in a vacuum. Sometimes they validate that you're moving in the right direction. Other times they warn you. Occasionally they whisper, pause, listen, shift. But always they invite you to participate, to engage more consciously with your life. And here's the strange part. The more you pay attention, the more they appear. It's as if reality is testing you, asking, will you listen this time, or will you retreat into the old comfort of disbelief? The system wants you to believe it's all confirmation bias, that your brain is only finding what it's looking for. But think about it, how convenient is that explanation? It keeps you dependent. It trains you to doubt your own experience. It tells you that your intuition is unreliable, that only an expert can tell you what's real. But when you pause, when you sit with the feeling these moments bring, something else begins to surface. A resonance, a quiet knowing, a sense that what you're experiencing isn't random at all. That feeling, that's the true language of the universe. It doesn't scream. It doesn't interrupt your life like an alarm bell. It waits. It watches. It whispers patiently, hoping you'll finally remember. Because when you start acknowledging these signs, truly seeing them for what they are, something fundamental shifts. Not just in your beliefs, but in the very fabric of your relationship with reality. Life stops feeling like a series of disconnected events. It becomes a dance, a dialogue, a living, breathing tapestry of intelligence that you are an active part of, not merely a spectator. And once you recognize that synchronicity is real, another truth begins to rise, one that's even more disorienting, yet liberating. Reality may not be fixed at all. You've been taught that life moves in a straight line, cause and effect. One thing leads to another. Neat, predictable, ordered. But quantum physics has already shattered that illusion. The closer we look at the nature of reality, the more it behaves like something alive, something fluid, something responsive to your awareness. If reality is fluid, then the idea of alternate versions of your life is not fiction. It's science. You've probably felt it even if you didn't have a name for it. Those moments where everything shifts. A decision that seemed small but changed the entire trajectory of your life. A chance meeting that led to a new job, a move to another city, a relationship that altered your sense of self. Or the opposite, when you narrowly avoided something catastrophic and you wonder what would have happened if I left 5 minutes earlier. These are not flukes. These are glimpses into the branching nature of reality itself. Every choice you make doesn't just move you forward, it moves you sideways into a new timeline, a different version of reality, a path that now exists parallel to the one you left behind. The ancient mystics knew this long before physicists gave it language. They saw the universe not as a fixed road, but as a sea of infinite possibilities, each choice a fork, each thought a rudder, each feeling a current, guiding you toward a different shore. You're not walking one path, you're shifting constantly, gliding between thousands, millions of possible versions of your life. What determines the path you walk? Your beliefs, your emotions, your decisions, and most importantly, your awareness. This is where synchronicity transforms. It's no longer just a message, it becomes a map, a form of guidance. When you start noticing those repeating numbers, the strange timing of events, the symbolic echoes in your daily life, they may not simply be saying pay attention. They may be signaling that you are aligning with your highest possible timeline, the one most in sync with your true purpose. You're not being dragged toward destiny like a puppet. You're co-creating it. Every thought, every action, every surrender or resistance shapes your path. The Synchronicity signs, they're the checkpoints. The gentle nudges reminding you, yes, this way. And that is precisely why they never taught you about any of this. Because someone who understands they are moving between realities, someone who knows they can shift their life dramatically through awareness and intention is impossible to control. Take the Mandela effect, for example, often laughed off as faulty memory, but what if it's something more? What if it's a collective slippage between timelines? What if entire groups of people are remembering different versions of history, not because they're wrong, but because reality itself shifted? If timelines can shift collectively, the entire structure of control begins to crumble, because it's built on the illusion of a singular objective, unchangeable past. And once you realize that's not true, you begin to see history isn't written in stone, it's written in sand. Quantum entanglement shows us that particles separated by light years remain connected. They mirror each other instantaneously as if distance and time are illusions. If matter behaves this way, why wouldn't consciousness? Perhaps what you experience as synchronicity is this same principal entanglement, a hidden connection between your inner world and the events unfolding around you. Science struggles to explain it, but ancient wisdom always knew. Every time you see a repeating number, every strange coincidence that speaks directly to your soul, every uncanny moment that makes your heart pause, you are brushing against this hidden web. You are catching glimpses of a deeper order, a multiverse of possibilities threaded together by meaning. And every time you choose to see it, to feel it, to respond, you are becoming a conscious creator. No longer just reacting, but participating. For decades, you've been fed a carefully edited version of science, one that makes the universe seem lifeless, mechanical, cold. A version that tells you everything can be calculated, predicted, and separated. But quietly in obscure journals and suppressed conferences, the truth has already slipped through. Consciousness is not just observing reality, it's shaping it. And that realization is the most powerful shift of all. Previously, we uncovered a powerful truth that your consciousness is not just a passive observer, but an active force shaping reality. If synchronicities are real, if repeating numbers and uncanny alignments are more than coincidence, then your awareness may hold more creative power than you ever imagined. At the subatomic level, reality behaves in ways that defy logic. Particles, the tiniest building blocks of the universe, do not even exist in a fixed state until they are observed. It's as if they wait for attention, for awareness. It's not just poetic, it's quantum physics. Observation, the simple act of conscious awareness, determines the outcome. Reality at its most fundamental level responds to consciousness. But this idea has been carefully confined, pushed into the shadows of sterile labs, and dismissed as irrelevant to your everyday life. They don't want you to make the connection. They don't want you to realize that your daily awareness, your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions might be shaping the reality you experience in ways far more profound than you've been led to believe. You've heard of the placebo effect. It's often brushed aside, reduced to the idea of fake medicine. But take a moment, really think about what it means. People have experienced real measurable healing purely because they believed they would. Their bodies responded not to chemicals or surgeries, but to expectation, to belief. The mind believed and the body obeyed. This isn't an anomaly. It's not a glitch. It's a glimpse into the deeper mechanics of consciousness. Yet rather than treat the placebo effect as evidence of how powerful your awareness truly is, the system labels it an oddity, an embarrassing variable to be factored out of serious research. But this is only the beginning. Across the world throughout history, there have been countless documented cases of spontaneous remission, people healing from so-called incurable conditions. The medical system calls them mysteries, anomalies, unexplainable. But many of these cases share a common thread, a shift in belief and mindset or in spiritual alignment. These aren't miracles. They're not magic. They are flashes of a deeper truth. The truth that reality, including your body, is far more fluid and responsive than we've been taught. But each time one of these cases surfaces, the system rushes to contain it, to explain it away. Because if you begin to believe in your own power, the entire profit structure of pharmaceuticals, of institutional control starts to tremble. What you've been presented as mainstream science is not neutral. It's a carefully managed narrative designed to maintain authority. The institutions that define what is considered real science are not operating in a vacuum. They are deeply intertwined with politics, economics, and corporate interests. Funding does not flow toward ideas that liberate individuals. It flows towards studies that reinforce dependence. Consciousness research has been pushed to the margins not because it lacks validity, but because its implications are dangerous to those in power. Imagine this for a moment, a world where people truly understood that their thoughts, their emotions, and their attention actively shape their reality. A world where synchronicity isn't dismissed as fantasy but embraced as feedback, a living response from the universe. That world would be filled with empowered individuals, sovereign, creative, impossible to manipulate through fear, guilt, or engineered scarcity. That's the world they don't want you to see. You've been sold a story, a script, that you are a powerless spectator in a mechanical universe, that your consciousness is nothing more than a side effect of neurons firing, that your dreams, your intuitive nudges, your strange synchronicities are all just mental static. But this was never about truth. It was about control. Because the moment you believe you are powerless, you become dependent on experts, on institutions, on systems that claim to know better. That dependency is the foundation of everything they've built. And it didn't happen by accident. Governments, military agencies, intelligence networks, they have quietly studied consciousness for decades. Remote viewing, precognition, the non-local nature of awareness. These aren't just science fiction ideas. They've been the subject of serious classified research since the Cold War. They know. They've known for a long time that consciousness bends reality in ways the public has never been permitted to believe. But while they research it in private, they ridicule it in public. Anyone who speaks about it openly is labeled a lunatic, a conspiracy theorist, a dreamer, disconnected from reality. It's the same strategy repeated again and again. Across every sector, education, media, medicine, science, the same pattern emerges. Information that empowers is mocked or buried. Narratives that encourage dependency are promoted and celebrated. Distractions are pushed at every turn, designed to keep your attention fragmented and shallow. And so most people never stop long enough to question whether they're seeing the full picture. But if you're still here, if you're listening now, you've already begun to question. You've already sensed the cracks in the illusion. And that's where change begins. Because once you consider the possibility that your awareness shapes your reality, that synchronicities are real signals that you are not just a bystander, but a co-creator, you step into a power that no one can take away. Long before modern science scoffed at synchronicity, ancient cultures embraced it. They didn't see the world as random or meaningless. They saw it as alive, an intelligent, interconnected field of energy and intention. They understood that the universe speaks, not in English or Chinese or any spoken language, but through symbols, signs, and patterns. To them, synchronicity wasn't superstition. It was a sacred language, a form of dialogue between the visible and the invisible. And at the heart of that dialogue was something we now dismiss as trivial numbers. Modern society treats numerology like a joke, party tricks, vague fortunes, superstition. But to the ancients, numbers were alive. They held power. They carried energetic significance far beyond mathematical value. Pythagoras, the father of modern math, didn't just invent equations. He studied the soul of numbers. He believed the entire universe was constructed through their sacred harmonies. To him, numbers were archetypes, frequencies, vibrations forming the skeleton of reality itself. So when you keep seeing 11, 11, 222, 333, it's not random. It's not an algorithm glitching. These numbers appear for a reason. They are embedded into your timeline like signposts, like subtle invitations to wake up and pay attention. Take 11 or an 11, often referred to as a wake-up code. It appears at moments of deep transition, moments when something in your soul is stirring. You glance at the clock, 11 almost 11. You feel it not in your mind but in your gut, a spark of awareness, a sense that something is shifting, that you are on the threshold of something greater. It's not magic, it's not superstition, it's communication. It's the universe tapping you on the shoulder and saying, look closer. Throughout history, mystics, secret societies, and spiritual initiates preserve this knowledge. Hermetic teachings found in texts like the Kybalion spoke of universal laws that govern both matter and spirit. As above, so below. As within, so without. These aren't poetic phrases. They are blueprints for reality. They reveal that what happens in your inner world doesn't just influence your outer world, it mirrors it in synchronicity. It's not a coincidence, it's a reflection, a sign that your internal state is in resonance with a greater field of intelligence. But this knowledge was never meant for everyone. It was reserved for the initiated, those deemed trustworthy or worthy. And over time, it was buried by religious institutions, by state powers, by modern cultures that dismissed it all as primitive folklore. The masses were fed dogma, rules, doctrine, while the empowering truths that each person could communicate directly with the universe were hidden. Today, numerology is mocked, treated as nonsense. Why? Because if you dismiss the language of numbers, you'll never explore what it truly means. You'll never decode the messages meant for you. You'll never step into the deeper understanding that you are not separate from the universe's intelligence. And that's the real threat. Because once you realize that, everything changes. In the last part, we explored how numbers are not entertainment, they're communication. And when you begin listening, you unlock a language that has always been whispering to you. But as this deeper awareness awakens, there's something else waiting just beneath the surface, something that has always stood in your way: fear. These signs, these numbers aren't appearing just to amuse you. They're woven into your experience to remind you of something ancient, something real. Every time you see repeating numbers, every time you feel that subtle, undeniable resonance in your body, when a symbolic alignment takes place, you're being pulled toward a deeper version of yourself, a version not dulled by the constant static of the world's noise, a version unshackled from the lifeless narrative that says life is random, a version that knows intuitively, unshakably that there is an order beneath the chaos, a rhythm you can feel. If you only stop running and start listening, the symbols have always been there, but you were conditioned not to see them. They taught you to fear the old ways, to mock the mystics, to treat ancient wisdom as dangerous, unscientific, or embarrassingly outdated. But ask yourself this: who benefits when you ignore your inner power? Who gains when you dismiss the idea that the universe is alive and responsive? The answer is simple: the system does. The system thrives when you believe you are insignificant, when you see yourself as just another biological accident drifting through a meaningless cosmos. Because the moment you even consider that the universe might be speaking directly to you, that it might be guiding you through numbers, symbols, synchronicities, you begin to unravel the very narrative that keeps you obedient. And something incredible happens when you begin to pay attention. The universe responds. Patterns begin to multiply. Signs appear more often. Moments that once felt disconnected begin weaving together into something undeniable. What once seemed like isolated events start forming a tapestry of connection, a web of meaning too precise to dismiss. This isn't fantasy. It's not imagination. It's the version of reality that was hidden from you, preserved by mystics, known by the ancients, and now remembered by you. But for all the signs you've seen, for every 1111, every perfectly timed encounter, there has always been something standing in the way: fear. Not the loud kind of fear, not the panic that screams in emergencies. This fear is quiet, persistent. It whispers, what if I'm wrong? What if they laugh? What if I sound crazy? You felt it. The fear of stepping outside the boundaries you were trained to stay inside. The fear of trusting your gut. The fear of speaking the truth your intuition has been trying to tell you for years. This fear wasn't born in you, it was planted. From the very beginning, you were taught that questioning the dominant worldview was dangerous, that believing life might be communicating with you wasn't wise, it was naive, maybe even delusional. Look around. Our culture is saturated with labels designed to silence intuition before it even speaks. Conspiracy theorist, New Age nut, pseudoscience believer. These aren't just insults, they're weapons. Language carefully crafted to make you police yourself, to make you silence your own experience before you dare speak it. But why? Why would society work so hard to make you fear your own intuitive knowing? Because that intuitive knowing, that inner voice, is the crack in their control. The entire system relies on your obedience. It needs you to trust experts, not yourself. To believe in official narratives, not the symbols that wake you in the night. To accept what is measurable, not what is meaningful. Because the moment you begin trusting your own inner perception over their external programming, you become unpredictable. And unpredictable people, they're dangerous to systems built on conformity. Every institution you have ever trusted has played a role. Schools taught you to value only what could be graded or tested. Religion told you divine communication comes only through sanctioned channels. Media ridiculed anyone who strayed from the accepted narrative. Even family and friends unknowingly pressured you to conform to avoid looking crazy. You learned to suppress what you felt, to ignore what you saw, to doubt what you knew. And over time, that doubt became reflex. You saw the signs, you felt the nudges, but you explained them away. You trained yourself to dismiss the whispers of the universe long before anyone else had to do it for you. But the fear goes deeper. You weren't just taught to fear being wrong, you were trained to fear being different. And this fear is ancient. It runs through our DNA. Because for most of human history, survival meant staying with the tribe, fitting in, not standing out. The system exploits this primal wiring. It ensures that stepping outside of consensus reality, it feels like an existential risk. And that fear, it's the strongest tool they have. And yet, despite all this programming, despite decades of suppression and ridicule, the signs still find you. The numbers still appear. The alignments still unfold. The whispers continue. Why? Because beneath the surface, beneath the fear, the training, the silence, your intuition never truly shut off. It's still there, waiting, quietly urging you to trust again. You may feel that acknowledging these patterns makes you vulnerable, that seeing too much, feeling too deeply leaves you exposed. But the truth is far more dangerous in the opposite direction. It's not seeing the signs that makes you vulnerable, it's ignoring them. Because when you disconnect from your own perception, you hand over the authority of your reality to others. You let them define what is true, what is real, what matters. And that is the real danger. That is the true prison. The greatest lie ever told wasn't that synchronicity is coincidence. It was this, that your own awareness couldn't be trusted, that your direct experience of life, what you feel, see, and know deep inside, was invalid without external approval. As long as you believe that, you remain dependent, you remain controllable. But the moment you reclaim your right to trust your own perception, the chains begin to fall. You were programmed to fear your power, because the system fears your power. A person who listens to the signs, who trusts the quiet pull of the universe, who acts in alignment with that deeper intelligence, becomes immune to manipulation. You cannot scare someone who knows they are guided. You cannot control someone who understands they are part of a living, breathing intelligence that exists beyond government systems or institutions. And this is why they work so hard to keep you distracted. Endlessly scrolling entertainment, fear-driven headlines, manufactured outrage, noise, all of it, engineered to keep you from hearing the one voice that matters most, your own. Because silence is dangerous. In silence, you reconnect. In stillness, you begin to hear again. And once you hear, you can never unhear. Beneath the case of your daily life, the emails, the deadlines, the feeds, the appointments, there is something vast, something real, something you've always felt but were never taught to understand. Every thought you've had, every emotion, every action, they ripple outward. You were told you are separate, a lone mind, in a lonely body, cut off from everything. But nothing could be further from the truth. You are part of a living, intelligent web, a great unseen network of energy and consciousness that is always responding, always shifting, always aware. The synchronicities you've witnessed, they're not accidents. They're not coincidences. They're feedback, reflections of your own alignment or misalignment with your deeper path. They're not messages dropped from the sky. They're echoes of your inner world rippling back through the fabric of the external. This is why some people see patterns everywhere and others see none. It's not about luck. It's not about chance. It's about awareness. Awareness shapes perception, and perception shapes reality. You've probably heard of the law of attraction, that thoughts become things, that positive thinking brings positive results. But that's only the surface. What's really happening is resonance. The frequency you hold emotionally, mentally, spiritually acts like a magnet. It doesn't just draw in matching experiences, it creates them. And once you understand that, you can never go back to sleep again. Previously, we uncovered that synchronicity doesn't just mirror your internal world, it responds to it. The more attuned you become, the clearer the signals. But something deeper is happening, a shift, and you're not the only one noticing it. When you're in resonance, truly in alignment with your deeper self, you begin to notice synchronicities, not as isolated surprises, but as natural reflections of your internal frequency. These moments aren't about forcing reality to bend to your will. They're about becoming so aligned, so in flow that the universe responds effortlessly. You don't push, you don't manipulate, you attune, and then reality meets you there. And the more aligned you become, the more intense it gets. The signs multiply, the coincidences accelerate. They begin to stack layer upon layer until it feels as though reality itself is building momentum around you. To an outsider, it may seem magical, even supernatural. But this is not magic. This is how the field works. You are not a passive observer. You are an active participant in shaping your timeline. And the universe, alive aware, is always listening to the signals you emit. But this truth is dangerous. Dangerous to the system that profits from your disconnection. If you truly understood how your internal world shapes your external experience, would you keep outsourcing your power? You'd stop consuming mindlessly. Stop waiting for permission. Stop living in fear. You'd stop letting experts define your life for you. You would become sovereign, self-directed, unpredictable, and to a system built on obedience and control that makes you a threat. You see, it's not just individuals who carry frequency, entire communities, entire nations. Even humanity itself emits collective energy. And collective fear, outrage, and distraction, they create heavy chaotic fields, clouds of confusion that block higher awareness. That's why we're bombarded with division. Endless wars, fear-based headlines, constant crises, they are not accidental. They are engineered to keep the collective field dense, to keep awakening rare. Because in a world of low vibration, alignment is difficult. But here's the shift. More and more people are waking up. You can feel it. Cracks are widening. Conversations once ridiculed, they're now shared openly. People are noticing the signs they once ignored. They're questioning the narratives they once followed without a second thought. The web, the energetic field that connects us all, is vibrating differently. And this isn't just some spiritual fad. This awakening isn't a trend, it's a ripple, a resonance reaching critical mass. And as more people tune in, the collective frequency rises, which makes it easier for the next person to awaken. And the next, and the next. Each awakening strengthens the field. Each realization fuels the momentum. This is why the system is scrambling. Censorship tightens, distractions multiply. Fear becomes louder, more persistent, more desperate. Because they know if enough people align, the entire structure of control begins to collapse. You were never meant to be isolated, never meant to be cut off from the field. The web, the intelligent network that underlies all of reality, has always been there, pulsing with energy, waiting for you to remember your place in it. The signs have been with you your entire life. You just stopped trusting them. But the moment you choose to see again, to truly see, you reconnect, not only with yourself, but with the force that's been guiding all of existence. There comes a point where you can no longer pretend it's all coincidence. The numbers show up too often. The alignments feel too precise. The timing becomes uncanny. It's not delusion. It's not projection. It's the moment the universe has been preparing you for when you begin to awaken to its language. A language that was never taught in school, never printed in a textbook, but one you've always known deep inside long before the world taught you to forget. Awakening doesn't happen all at once. It starts quietly. You start journaling the strange moments. You begin noticing repeating numbers. You stop brushing off those intuitive gut feelings. You start asking questions, not to others, but to life itself. And then things shift. The more you pay attention, the more the patterns reveal themselves. Not because reality is changing, but because your awareness is sharpening. What once looked like random noise now forms a symphony. You realize the universe was never silent. You just weren't tuned to the right frequency. As the signs increase, a new challenge emerges. Some go too far, swinging into obsession, seeing meaning in everything, grasping for significance in every shadow. But the key here isn't obsession, it's discernment. Not every coincidence is a message. Not every repeated number is an instruction. Some signs are confirmations. Some are gentle nudges. Some are just reminders to stay present. The language of the universe is subtle. It asks for openness, but also humility. It grows stronger the more you trust it. But trust doesn't mean forcing meaning, it means listening. Synchronicity is not a static language, it's alive. It responds to your engagement. And when you live in alignment with your deeper self, the signs arrive naturally. You don't have to chase them. You simply need to be present, receptive, willing to act when the time is right. Because action is what completes the loop. You can receive signs endlessly, but it's your response, your choice to act, that makes the communication real. You've been conditioned to seek approval from outside, to wait for validation, to follow credentials and permission slips before trusting yourself. But the universe doesn't give certifications. It doesn't hand out degrees. It invites, it whispers, and it asks you to remember what has always been yours, your inner authority. Synchronicity is the proof. It's not just a sign, it's a confirmation that you are deeply connected to something far more intelligent than you've been told. As you live from this space, this internal trust, something beautiful happens. Obstacles dissolve. Opportunities align. People appear at the perfect moment. Life begins to flow, not because it's suddenly easier, but because you've stopped resisting the current you were always meant to ride. This state isn't fantasy. It's not a spiritual illusion. It's your natural state. It's what you were designed to experience. The struggle, the chaos, the confusion, that's what was manufactured. And the system fears individuals who remember this. Because aligned people are not easily controlled. They don't respond to fear. They don't panic when headlines scream. They don't comply when something feels off. They move differently, calm, certain, unshakable. And that makes them powerful. But remember, not every sign brings comfort. Sometimes the universe challenges you. It pushes you toward difficult choices. It asks you to let go, to step into the unknown. It asks you to trust, especially when the safety net is invisible. But in those moments, synchronicities become stronger. Reality itself begins to echo. You are on the right path. This isn't about discovering something new. It's about remembering something ancient. The language of the universe has always been yours. You were just taught not to listen. But now you hear it again. And in doing so, you step into a wider reality. A reality where you are no longer a victim of chance, but a co-creator of your path. And here's the secret you're awakening. It doesn't end with you. As you begin to see the patterns, to hear the whispers, you notice others waking up too. Strangers share your thoughts. Friends confess their own weird coincidences. The ripple moves outward. And this is what the system fears most. Because when synchronicity spreads beyond isolated individuals, it threatens the very foundation of control. A collective that remembers its connection to the web cannot be manipulated. It becomes aware, it becomes resilient, it becomes self-directing. For so long, they kept people divided, told them their experiences were isolated, or worse, imaginary. But the moment we start comparing notes, a new field emerges, one that runs on truth, not programming, on connection, not control. As more people live in alignment, reality itself shifts. Timelines merge, choices ripple globally, and the old structures begin to collapse, not with explosions, but with irrelevance. They're trying to stop it. You can see it. Censorship, algorithm suppression, fear-based news, but it's too late. The wave is here. This isn't rebellion as they define it. This isn't war. This isn't rage. This is something quieter, more powerful. It's the refusal to play their game. It's the choice to rise above the frequency they've designed. And when enough people do that, their system has nothing left to control. This is the quiet revolution, and you are a part of it. You may think your awakening is small, but it's not. Every time you trust your intuition, every time you honor a sign instead of dismissing it, you strengthen the signal. You make it easier for the next person to remember. And this is just the beginning. Inside Insights Academy, we explore what can't be shared publicly. We go deeper into ancient teachings, practical tools, and hidden layers of synchronicity. Right now, you'll still receive the Kybalion ebook for free when you join. But this opportunity won't last forever, because what you're feeling right now isn't just curiosity. It's a call to return to the version of yourself that's been waiting all along. The universe is not silent, it's alive. It's speaking to you, and now you're finally listening.